Town have a new manager. We now know that Matt Bloomfield will be the man to lead the Hatters on a 3.5-year contract to react to the news and to look ahead to his first game in charge against Preston North End on Saturday. I've got the Lutonian journalist James Cunliffe. Jimbo, new era, let's get going.
In bloom.
In bloom indeed, yes. We'll do all of that right after this intro.
I believe our supporters are the best supporters in the country.
I love this town. I love this town. I love this town. You know what I love about this town is actually you. Everyone in it has got this massive soul.
We're Luton people, and that's what we care about.
Hello everyone, welcome along to another episode of the Luton Town Supporters Trust podcast, the award-winning, longest-running Luton Town podcast, having scooped bronze in the Best Football League podcast category in the Football Content Awards. This season, the show is in association with Solid, providing opportunities, provisions and assistance so our academy can fulfil their potential. As I said before the intro, we are looking at Luton's new manager, Matt Bloomfield from Wycombe, and we will look ahead to his first game in charge against Preston North End on Saturday. Jimbo, we kind of knew, didn't we, when we were talking about it in the last podcast after the Forest game, that we were going to get a new manager this week. We didn't think it was going to be delayed. We thought it was going to be quite quick. Paul Trollope's comments seemed to suggest that. And as we left the studio on Sunday night, the rumours were getting louder that it was going to be Matt Bloomfield. Throughout most of Monday, you know, the media world was pretty much confirming the case, and then Tuesday morning Wycombe confirmed he'd left, and then immediately after we confirmed he was our new manager. And you were invited to a press conference. I'll get your first impressions on him in a moment, but we should just say thank you to Richie Carl and Paul Trollope, who were equally as big a part of what happened at the club under Rob as what Rob was himself.
Yeah, and obviously they stayed around to take that Forest game, so yeah, for a while, the three of them could do no wrong, didn't they? And then, obviously, at the end, they couldn't do anything right. So I'm sure they'll be sort of thinking about how that went, but they will always have that first part where they made history and they made everyone happy. So, yeah, fair play to them.
Yep, welcome back at Kenilworth Road anytime, as Rob is too. Matt Bloomfield. We were a little bit... We wasn't dismissive of him. He was obviously clearly a candidate that fits a lot of the Luton profile. We were kind of sceptical of a lack of championship experience, which we'll come on to in a moment because it's there. But there are reasons maybe why it's not quite the thing that we painted it out to be. But you was at the press conference yesterday. What was your first impressions of him?
He's got lovely hair. Which means I no longer have the best quiff in Luton press conferences, which was, you know, I was going to have that for a week after Rob left, but it's clearly the criteria here is wonderful hair. So
well, he's younger than us two, isn't he? So his isn't falling out yet. So that's probably helpful towards his wonderful quiff. And yeah, you're right. You're second in that category now, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I've lost out quite comfortably there. That's fine. Managers being younger than me, it's going to take a longer time to get used to. But that's going to be the case forevermore now. But you know, he spoke very well, very confident. His two managerial jobs so far have given cause for positivity. And everything he said is the sort of stuff you probably want to hear. It's just that, well, I've done a lot of these now, and I think the first press conference is one of the easy ones to do because you come in and say the right things, and it's just now, it's all actions now, isn't it? It's what it does on the pitch, which will determine really how he's viewed, really. But at the moment, I think it's quite positive. I think there's more in the pro column than there is the cons column, and there's always going to be risk with a managerial appointment, as we know and as we've seen. So, first impression's good, and the proof will be in the pudding at Preston, I guess.
It will, yep. Clearly, it was going to take a big job or a big project, whatever the term is, to prize him away from Wycombe. This is a guy who's been at Wycombe Wanderers for near enough 20 years of his working life, save for 4 or 5 months when he managed Colchester. Ultimately he has only gone up about 5 places in the football pyramid. So, there was clearly something that attracted him to this club. Obviously, as Luton fans, we all know what that is, that charm, that sort of special ingredient that we have that not many clubs do have.
And presumably, bit of that, bit of money.
Well, naturally, we all like a little bit of that in our pockets.
I'm not
don't
begrudging
we?
him, not begrudging him.
Absolutely.
Everybody wants a bit of money to move somewhere better, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. But also, it seems like it was the feeling of being wanted. That was the first thing he stressed in his press conference. Here's what he said when asked about what it was that brought him to Luton Town.
Well, I've already been wanted by more clubs in my managerial career than I did in my playing career, so that's got to be a bonus, I guess. I think we all want to work at a place where we wanted, and we want to work at a place where we're comfortable, and that was presented to me very early on that I was, really wanted here, and I felt really comfortable. I'm big on people, I'm big on trust and respect, and I found that in abundance from Gary and the board of directors. Like I say, the way they welcomed me and made me feel that way was crucial in my decision, because it's a place where I've been admiring from afar, watching the journey, because we come up against each other several times throughout the time, especially in Nathan's time as manager here. So I always knew what Luton stood for, but the feeling that I felt when I came in the building to meet the board of directors and Gary, as I've said, made the decision very easy for me. Felt very at home very quickly, so it's an honour and a privilege to be here, mate.
Yeah, so clearly the fact that the board are all Luton supporters, they made him very, very welcome, as they would do. I think the thing to stress here, the one thing that came across in that press conference, and I've no reason to doubt it whatsoever, he is the only man they looked at. All the data provided them with him as high up on their list. And then I think Gary later on in the press conference said something along the lines of, we just hoped he was a good character, because that's the second thing. The data leads them to the man. Then they interview the man to see what the man is like in terms of a character. That's what happened with Nathan. That's what happened with Rob. And what happened with Graham Jones. Okay, that one didn't work out. We all know why that was, and everything else. This guy hasn't lost his 2 best players, so hopefully that's a little bit more encouraging. Clearly he was the man they wanted, though, and made it perfectly clear there.
Yeah, it seems that way, and that's when you look back on it with hindsight, that's probably the better way to go, isn't it? Because you don't want to be just sacking a manager and then having nothing there and a vacuum for a while. We're told, and we've been told for many years, that there's succession planning for managers, for players. In fact, I was told it when Rob Edwards was introduced in his first press conference, that is what they do, and that is the wise thing to do. So, anyone with a rudimentary look at what he's done, Matt Bloomfield, will see that he does fit the profile of what they've gone for since Nathan, which is a young coach, an up-and-coming coach, doing good things. Whereas Nathan was a coach, but he'd been at some good places, and that was his first managerial job, save for a couple of games in charge of Brighton as a caretaker. Then the Graham Jones came along, and obviously that one didn't work, but Rob Edwards had won the League 2 title with Forest Green and had been in the England setup, so there's obviously clear move on from there. And then you get to Bloomfield, and he's firstly gone and rescued a Colchester side that was in danger of slipping out of the Football League, and then he's taken a Wycombe side who we all know to be in quite an agricultural, horrible, time-wasting team to play against, and he's turned them into a team that's very free scoring, and save for a week or two has been challenging up in the top 2 spots of League One against Birmingham City and Wrexham, who've got money bags, Hollywood and NFL money, flowing out their pockets. So it's
not just
impressive.
those two either. Sorry to interrupt you, but 4th place in the table, Huddersfield have just brought Joe Taylor for £3 million. I don't know for sure the state of play at Wycombe, but I'm pretty sure they've not spent £3 million on a player any time recently, and suspect they're not going to anytime soon either. And there's talk also that Huddersfield are going to sign Dion Charles from Bolton, so they're also clearly having another go. They're kind of doing it on.
That's happened now.
It has happened.
It's happened today.
So they're kind of doing their spending under the radar of Birmingham and Wrexham, but they're having a good go themselves. So to have Wycombe there, highest scorers in League One as we speak, 50 goals, and I think it is in 26 games. No team in this country has scored more goals than them this season. Okay, they've probably played a few more games than the likes of Liverpool, who would be second on that list, I would imagine. But even so, we were lauding those statistics when Nathan had us as, when Nathan was the best manager in Europe. They're there for a reason, and it's clearly very good that he's on that. Are all of those statistics 100% foolproof? I'm not sure that they are. I'll point out a few statistics later on that maybe offers something different, not too negatively, but more realistically. But ultimately,
I think and we haven't conferred on this, but I think I know the ones you're going to say about chance conversion, which are a key to point out, I think. So when we come to that bit, so I think there are some sort of mitigating factors, but the overall,
his team puts the ball in the back of the net.
Exactly.
Doesn't matter how it gets in the back of the net, and he puts them in the back of the net from open play. That is one of the things that I'm going to point out in a moment. But yeah, my first impressions of him were very much. I mean, I've heard a lot of this guy in the last 24 hours. Club put out an interview with him on the social channels. I was part of a Three Counties phone-in last night.
It was absolute moonlighting. This is why we're doing this a day late, because Billy, what's it? He's on a fringe radio show called BBC. Never heard of it, but you did all right. Well done.
I mean, I wanted to take them up a level, to be fair. It was nice of them to invite me on. They had him live at the start of that programme.
It was a good show, actually.
And I've heard the audio from the press conference, because we're going to play it and we're going to talk about it now. So I've heard a lot of Matt Bloomfield in different guys. He says a lot of the same things in all of them, to be fair. But yeah, he does. He speaks really, really well. And when it was announced, I've never been against this, and I'm really not against it now. Anyone who listened to me last night will know that, the obvious concern, and I addressed it on the show last night, and we're definitely going to do it now, is that he hasn't managed a game of Championship football before, and Luton are in a Championship relegation battle. Now, I'm not necessarily worried about the not managed a game of Championship football before, because I don't think there's a great deal between the top end of League One and the majority of the Championship. If you look at the teams that come up from League One, they generally stay up quite comfortably. This isn't a going up from the Championship to the Premier League golf. It's much closer than that. So that in itself doesn't bother me. The being in a relegation battle bit, we were discussing in the last couple of podcasts, weren't we? Do we go for a safety first approach to make sure that we survive, and then in the summer look at it again? We haven't done that. If Matt Bloomfield keeps us up, I think he will. I still maintain I don't think we were going to go down, albeit we're in a relegation battle. Still think we've got enough here to get out of the trouble that we're in. But if he does keep us up, then he's basically got 5 months from here on now to assess what he needs in the summer to go again in the summer. But what I'm interested in was, and one of you guys asked him it yesterday, about being in a relegation battle, and he reflected on his time at Colchester. Here's what he said in relation to that question, and then we'll chat that once we've played you the audio.
When I took the job at Colchester, I really wanted to get away from Wycombe and stand on my own 2 feet, take a risk in my life to risk failing. That was what I was doing there, because I didn't want to get the job by default at Wycombe. So from there it's been a roller coaster of a journey. We managed to turn things around at Colchester, really proud of the job we did there. Went back to Wycombe and really tried to be us, implement our style on the group. And like I say, it's presented some really exciting opportunities to go to Wycombe and now to come to Luton. I have to say how pleased I am to be here.
Clearly that Colchester stint should encourage us, shouldn't it? Because they were in real doo-doo. This was before the time that Joe Taylor went there on loan. He rebuilt them, and then Joe Taylor went there on loan after he'd left to go to Wycombe. So he's got history of this. He's also got history, as you referenced earlier in the podcast, of a team that, what was the phrase you used? Agricultural.
I think it's more a Gareth Ainsworth trait there.
Indeed.
But he did,
Well, we're
he
not
did play with for him, didn't he? Because he's
Yeah.
been there for 19 years.
We're not agricultural in that regard, but we are still a pretty direct football team. And everything that I see and read suggests we're about to not be a particularly direct football team in terms of banging it up to a striker, at least. So they're two positives, aren't they? He has been through a relegation problem before, away from his comfort zone of Wycombe. And he's changed a style of direct football into a much more aesthetically pleasing, attacking style of football. The latter took a long time, and it will do here. That's obvious. These players, it's ingrained in these players. Luton immediately looked so much better when we went back to a direct style of football this season because it's ingrained in them. But the fact that he's fought relegation, come out the other side, he's walking into a similar situation here. He knows what to expect.
Yeah, and the Colchester situation, albeit in different league, League Two, was, there's a lot more at stake, I think, isn't there? If you slip out the Football League, the prestige of that, as we well know. And they were in a similar position. I think they were 1 point above the relegation zone when he went there, so they were in real strife and managed to get them out. And I think, a lot has been said that he spent, half of his adult life at Wycombe. But if you can go to another place like that, out of your comfort zone, and do the business, when he's obviously referenced, if you fail, the club get relegated, but also you don't get looked on for another job. So his career was on the line as well. So it's a big risk, and he went and took it, and he was successful. So on that front, very, very positive. And then, the Wycombe stuff to change. I have not watched Wycombe since we were forced to watch Wycombe in the lower leagues playing against us. So, but I've read a lot about from the Wycombe side, and you see the stats and everything. He's obviously changed them from that Ainsworth side into what they are now, which is, on the face of it, a very clinical attacking force, which everybody will want to see, won't you? Goals is what you're there for. So if you can do that, great. It won't happen this season, I would be amazed. But you can make steps towards that. But obviously the first thing is the relegation battle, and we've referenced it many a times on the previous podcast. They've got 4 games now against teams that you can get points against, or you should be looking to get points against if you're in a relegation battle before you start coming up against the bigger teams and the high flyers in this division. So it's going to be a baptism of fire, and he's going to have to hit the ground running essentially. But from a low bar of 5 straight defeats in all competitions, a point is progress. But I think everybody wants to see a bit more about the team, some new ideas, because I think many of us towards the end of Rob's tenure didn't really know what we were trying to achieve, didn't really know what the style was, and whereas previously the goals had been coming, they started drying up, and that was a worry. And obviously we can't keep clean sheets for Toffee, so if he can fix that bit, stopping goals going in, because 2 goals a game sort of on average, it seems, just, I'm not just talking statistically, I'm talking by what we've seen, but it's not going to fare you well anywhere, regardless of whether you can turn Luton into an attacking force that can score more than the other lot in a Kevin Keegan style. It's just not what Luton's promotion season to the Premier League was built on. It was built on a rock-solid defence and not that many goals. So there's a lot to change, but I think people will give him the time to do it. I hope they will.
I'm absolutely sure that they will do, yeah. I mean, if you're expecting, Luton to go from where we've been to Brazil 1970 by Saturday, you might be disappointed. But
it's your rungs on the ladder analogy, isn't it? We can't.
Exactly.
That's not going to happen. It has got really quite bad and worrying to the point where we're talking about being in a relegation battle, regardless of whether you think realistically you go down. But when all the other teams around Luton have got new managers and supposed new manager bounce, obviously everybody's hoping for that, aren't they? And but like I say, that a new manager bounce for the position we're in could well be a a decent hard-fought point. Everybody wants victory, obviously, but that's progress.
Yeah, indeed. We'll come on to Saturday in a moment, but basically what we're looking for on Saturday is a level of platform that's solid enough that we can build on. We're not going to be right up here, but at the same time, let's hope we're not right down here. Somewhere sort of a third of the way up the ladder would be quite nice. Just one other thing to cover in that press conference, and again, we'll play some audio. He doesn't think it's going to be too difficult to turn this ship around, does he? He spoke about it not being rocket science, which I really like, because I've referenced it a few times on this podcast, particularly over the last 2 months. No one really knows what we've been trying to do. Have we been trying to play possession-based football? No. But then suddenly at QPR, yes, and at Forest. Have we been playing direct football against Watford and Sunderland? Yes, but then not really. Are we trying to get the ball out wide and cross the ball in? Well, not really, because our wide players have been playing at wing-back, sat on the edge of our... No one really knows. We've said it a few times, haven't we? If I asked you what's Luton's style of football, you'd have to think long and hard about it and hope that you guess the right answer. It wasn't immediately apparent. I think it will be under Matt Bloomfield. And let's play some audio from that, where he says in particular he's going to work on the out of formation shape. When was the last time we heard about working on the out of possession shape? When was the last time we heard that quote? Because whenever we're out of possession, there is no shape. And that's why we keep on conceding 2 goals a game, because we lose the ball and 5 seconds later, Kaminsky's either keeping it out of our net or it's in our net.
It's very hard to form the shape of a knife through butter, though, isn't it? Which is exactly what it was for a while. Teams could just cut through Luton, whether it was with a pass or a bursting run, and they were allowing that to happen seemingly until they got to the edge of the box, and that's where the intervention would happen. So any tweaks to change that scenario will be welcome.
Yep, he's done that at Wycombe, and here's what he said in the press conference about how he's going to approach it at Luton.
I think first and foremost we need to do some work on the out of possession shape. Our identity that we've been playing with at Wycombe this year is slightly different, and the boys have had an incredible success going up to the Premier League, being out of possession the way they have been, but we want to maybe do it slightly different. So we're just trying to imprint that with the boys, try and create some more chances. It's not rocket science. We want to try and create some more chances and try and tighten up a little bit, but I'm really respectful of the job that Rob's done here previously. I think he's an incredible man, a fantastic manager, got a really good group together, and there's been a lot going on at the football club, on and off the pitch in terms of the emotional toll that's taken on the group and for Rob, and I'm really hoping that we can bring some fresh energy and look forward to doing a good job here. The footballing principles that we play with, I think you can put over the different divisions. I think the game's very similar, but also ultimately is going to be some slight differences as well. I've watched a lot of Championship football, so the fact of the matter is I've never managed in the Championship. That's the fact. But can we integrate the way we try and play into the group that we've got here? We really believe so. We've had 2 games against Championship opposition this year, so we've had a first-hand look at the way those 2 teams play, Swansea and Portsmouth. So we're very pleased how we played against those 2 teams. So it's about learning for us as well, obviously, very, very quickly. We've watched a lot of football and tried to come to terms with the level as quickly as possible, and we're really excited to do what we can do as soon as possible. We want to survive, first and foremost. We understand where we are in the league. We understand what's contributed to the team being in the position where they are right now. But we have big belief. Again, I need to reiterate, I wouldn't have left my job at Wycombe to walk into something I didn't believe that could be a success. I absolutely believe that we can be a success here. So it's about picking up some results, building an identity, start to put the building blocks in place, try and get some momentum moving into the summer, because the club has high aspirations. There's a really exciting future and vision here, and we want to play a big part in that. Yeah, without trying to be too flippant, I think we've conceded too many goals and not scored enough. That's been the 2 standout stats from the season so far. So we need to try and tighten up from conceding so many goals and try and create more opportunities from open play at the other end. So they're the 2 main focuses of our attention in the immediate future. To win football matches, we need to carry a threat at the top of the pitch. We need to make sure we're solid at the back. That sounds obvious, I know, but they're the 2 areas that we need to focus our attention on. Some of the other bits can wait till further down the line, because we can't overload the players with too much information right away. There's there's some things we can go after right now and other things that we need to implement on a more longer term basis. So it's about creating an environment that they feel comfortable working in, some clarity in the way we're going to go about our business, and implementing that on the pitch on a Saturday and a Tuesday evening, and trying to pick up some results as quickly as we possibly can.
Is that something you think could be a relatively quick fix?
I think results will show us whether we get that right straight away or whether it takes a little bit longer. I do believe that we can implement it quickly. I absolutely believe that. If not, I wouldn't have left my previous job to come and do this here. I believe in what we have in our building. I believe in the work that we can go and do with the group. Some very good footballers here who have obviously been on the wrong end of a few defeats this season, but some very good players, and we really hope that if we can implement the work quickly and bring a bit of a freshness about the building, that we can get off to a good start.
Yeah, when he spoke about formation, when he spoke about the actual football, I really liked what I heard. I mean, obviously, I'm not a player at Luton, thank God, because my footballing ability is worse than some of the ones that you've seen on show. But I like hearing simple things. I'm a simple person, so I like hearing simple things.
He is, you know.
And that's exactly, absolutely, I am very simple. And that's exactly what he portrayed. He just gives simple explanations, you know, out of possession shape. You get the impression that he's going to play a formation, and we'll come on to formation because it's clearly a big thing at Luton at the moment. You get the impression he's going to play a formation that suits the players that he's got at his disposal, rather than where we've just finished of a formation and we'll put players in who hopefully do the job even if they're not specialists in it. So that's also a positive. And I also get the impression that within that formation, everyone's going to know their role. It's going to have their simple role, and if all 11 of you perform those roles, we're going to win more games of football than we don't. He won more games at Wycombe than he lost, which, based on where he took them over from, that is a really good effort. Forget what they're doing this season. To do that overall over a 2-year period, to win more games than you lose, not many managers do that. You're right at the top of whichever division you're in when you do that. I mean, if you think that teams that get promoted even from the Championship, few of them win half of the games of football that they play. You know, usually they're in and around the 21-22 wins mark. This guy's won comfortably more than he's lost, so he's operating to a decent winning level, and that's what I'm looking forward to Luton's players having on Saturday. You can just tell from that phrase, out of possession shape, there's going to be a structure to us on Saturday, which we haven't had. We haven't had a structure it's been better in the last 2 games, admittedly, but we haven't had a structure since Tom went down at Bournemouth, in all honesty. We've been mixing and matching and, you know, square pegs in round holes and all of that thing. But I get the impression that everyone's going to know their job, going to know what they do. So, you know, Marv's going to be told to give the ball to someone who's good at it, and that is all you do. The ones that are good at it will know where to go. We're going to have wide players getting forward. I spoke a lot to Sam Avery, the Three Counties guy, yesterday when we were doing the show together, and he's like very, very clear on, you just know where players are going to be on the pitch when he's commentating on it. Obviously, he's got the names and the numbers in front of him, but the players are in the same positions all the time, that he just knew who they were without even having to, you know, use his eyes to double check, sort of thing. And that's what we've been missing for a while. I'm really looking forward to getting back to that.
Yeah, I think that will be. It's obviously one of the first points of call. You've got to do that to try and change the way the results have been going. Whether he can do that in 3.5, 4 days of training will remain to be seen. But maybe the 2 previous games where the structure did look a lot better, albeit lost at QPR and lost at Forest, that can be a platform for what he wants to do, hopefully. Ultimately, the proof will be in the performance, won't it? But yeah, everything he says there is encouraging. Didn't rule out a back 3. Which
Don't dampen my spirits, Jimbo. Do not dampen my spirits.
But yeah, he didn't rule out a back 3, and he said he has played the 2 different, back 4, back 3. I think it's the things that happen in front of the defensive structure that are key there to what he's doing. But 3 or a 4 was interchanged in the Premier League season under Rob, so it leaves the question, which we may never know now, even though he was asked, it's important to say he was asked about formation. Whether that was entirely down to injury and the lack of personnel, that he persisted with this formation that really everybody got really quite annoyed with at the end of it, and arguably played a large part in him losing his job at Luton. We may never know that now, but so I wouldn't be worried about it so much if there was a 3 or a 4, because he's said he's going to go in there and assess the players and play them where he thinks they're going to be suited. But what I see in front of the defence is more encouraging. There was a formation I said a couple of weeks ago that I'd love to have seen Luton play, and it looked like it never would do under Luton. And now I think we might get it, which I'm very excited about.
Yeah, exactly. I am too. I mean, he played a 4-3-3 largely at at Wycombe. Occasionally it was a 4-2-3-1. By and large, it was a 4-3-3 with kind of 2 pivots, if you like, and 1 in front of them. So it could easily transform into a 4-2-3-1. The thing that was pointed out to me that I find really interesting in his Wycombe side is he has his front 3, and then he has 3 others for those positions, and he regularly rotated throughout from game to game. And what Sam was saying on the programme last night, kind of confirming what I thought, was that it helps with injury prevention. And obviously injuries has been a big thing for us, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Games come thick and fast in the Championship. They come even thicker and faster in League One, because you still have the normal cup competitions. Then you have what was the Johnston Paint Trophy as we know it as. They start in the FA Cup even earlier than what we do, and they don't have international breaks. So they come thicker and faster in that division. So you've got to rotate. Get the impression he's going to do that here. So if he's going to play with a front 3, whether that's a front 3 as in a front 3 or 2 wide of in a 4-2-3-1, he's got 2 centre forwards that he can rotate immediately, Morris and Adebayo. He's got 2 left-hand side with players that he can rotate, In Chong and Jacob Brown, who can play that side. And then on the right side, he's got Isaiah Jones and Victor Moses. So he's immediately got the tools in an attacking area to do that. And then, of course, we've got Zach Nelson, who can play all across all of those positions behind the striker. So he's not going to have to go into the transfer market unless he really wants to sort that side of the pitch out. That's encouraging. So we're probably not going to get into this position where we're going to have the same front 3 all the time. It's going to rotate a lot, particularly in this first week. Preston, Oxford, Millwall, and Millwall being the early kickoff. I would imagine we are going to see lots of changes. He's going to want to know what he's got, and he's only going to see it really on the pitch. But if that helps with injuries, funnily enough, we haven't had problems in attack, really, injury-wise. But then if it leads to other places, if we can find a backup for Alfred Doughty and right back, and they start to rotate now and again as well, just to take the pressure off of them from a workload point of view, that will solve one of the biggest problems that we've had over the last 12 months of not getting anyone on, not being able to get our best players on the pitch often enough.
It's been a huge problem, yeah. I've done so many sort of chats about it in the last week or so. I did ask Gary Sweet about the injury situation, and there'll be, I won't go into the whole thing. There'll be a piece on the Lutonian.com website, but acknowledging that it's a big problem and that they were trying to get to the bottom of it and the things that they were doing to get to the bottom of it, which was interesting to hear because obviously there's a problem. Although he did say there's a problem across the board in football, whether the way that football's being played now, that sort of stuff. So undoubtedly it's been a problem. How many times do we say in the Premier League, and we may have been still in the Premier League if it weren't for injuries. And then that's the hangover of that's flowed into this season and continued and really affected everything, really. You haven't been able to put out a full strength side once, maybe, I don't think, this season. And for a full calendar year, that's horrendous. And we know that the effect of that one win on the road in that whole time. So that is positive. And then you've also got Isaiah Jones, who's been signed, who he's luckily very excited about because he was signed before he got here.
That was a stroke of luck, wasn't it?
But that provides so much more balance, or will do anyway, particularly when Doughty's back, and pace, which is something that obviously is lacking, and hopefully they can add that in this window. They did say they were going to try and be as aggressive as possible, and that's not to say that they weren't in the last window. It just nothing came off for one reason or another, and whether you like that or not, that was the reality. So there are positives there. It's just nothing was clicking, and not even clicking. There was, when the luck was deserting you for Rob, then the writing really was on the wall. As much as most of us, not all of us, wanted him to do well and wanted him to turn it around, when things like that go against you, then it was the right time to change at the point that they did, if not sooner. Obviously, we've talked about that many times. They could have done that sooner, but they wanted him to turn it around. They wanted to give him the chance. So there's a lot more encouraging about what we've seeing, what we're hearing, and the evidence of what has happened under Bloomfield at other places. Now, the unknown here, obviously, is how do you transfer that to another team, and particularly one that's on their downers? Because when Edwards came, they weren't particularly on the uppers that we would then experience, but they were comfortable. They were in the league. Nathan had left a good side that just didn't look like they were going to be challenging anytime soon, and he turned them into that. In a similar vein, in a more star-studded area, Arne Slot's come in to a very good Liverpool side that left by Jurgen Klopp, and he's not had to do too much to it to make them leaders of the Premier League. But this is different. You've got to come in and almost change the culture in small letters, not big culture here, not the culture that's being talked about. The culture of losing.
The mentality is
that's
what he's got to change. Absolutely. And that's why I've been calling for it for a while. I've never once thought Luton would go down, but we've needed a new voice for this. The voice had just gone stale. Fans weren't interested in that voice anymore. If fans weren't, you got to think players weren't. Performances were suggesting that voice was having no impact. Now, that Bristol City one in particular, and then afterwards you hear about how it was a decent performance. No, they're just not. It was the words of a confused and muddled person, and I've got the impression that we've not got that here. I've also got the impression that we're going to have a hard-working team, because that's what I've heard all throughout that show on Three Counties last night, and Matt himself said the cornerstone of his side is hard work, and that's one of the reasons why he rotates his front three. I presume they get through a heck of a lot of work per game, doing pressing high up. Well, he's got a front three, or front however many that he wants to play, who are used to pressing. Everything is there for him to be successful here. We're basically recruiting it for the next couple of months. We've basically changed him for his fresh voice and outlook, as we have for him to come in and do a wholesale change of the squad. Will there be changes of the squad in the summer? I would imagine there would. There's a few players on the wrong side of 30, and if he is going to be hard-working, pressing and energetic, 30-year-olds and above don't really cut that. I don't know all about his Wycombe sides, but they had a couple of Premier League loans that have gone back as well, one of which we've been linked with, that I'm not sure if it's anything more than simply, Bloomfield's gone to Luton, they'll try and get him on loan, even though he can't play for us this season, which is Caleb Taylor, which I suspect there is no truth in it. It's just an easy story to put together.
Could be a summer thing, I suppose, couldn't it?
Yeah, it could, yeah. But the fact that he's got Premier League loans, okay, Taylor's actually from West Brom, I think, but top end of the Championship, tells us that he's got a reputation that other managers are going to give him players. They wouldn't give him a player if he was direct or not able to coach up young players. So that's a positive. I think he's the right man for now. Yeah, okay, he hasn't managed a game of Championship football, but Robert only managed 10 or 11 or however many it was they said. They threw him out. He hadn't managed any higher than League 2 at that point, apart from those 10 games, and, that worked out pretty well.
Yeah, I think the thing is the thing for me would be the new voice aspect of it. And
Yeah, I'm massive on that, Jimbo. I am.
I referenced it after the Burnley game, the opening game of the season, because they just swapped, because their manager had been poached by Bayern Munich. They swapped Vincent Kompany for Scott Parker. Now Scott Parker stood at that stand in front of an empty Kenilworth Road end after that game with the TV crew doing an interview where he said he had to come in that summer and look at the squad and pick them up and change things in a sense that that team had become too used to losing. And I think that the evidence that Luton have become too used to losing, whether they want to or not is different. I'm not saying that. They clearly don't want to lose, but they needs a new voice to change it. And so that, coupled with the tweaks, the early tweaks that he said he's going to do to out of possession shape, and then obviously trying to score more goals, are things that you can do immediately. How immediately, I don't know. Whether Preston is long enough to affect that change will remain to be seen, but that's encouraging.
It is, yep. Now, where could he struggle in comparison to his Wycombe side? One area could be how clinical his forwards are. At Wycombe, they were clearly very clinical. Their goals are miles above the XG for the quality of chances that they've created. I think they're somewhere in the region of 17 or 18 goals better off. I'm not sure that's sustainable, and even if it is, our strikers' chance conversion rate hasn't been high for a long time. That's not to say you can't coach that into them. I'm coming from this with a completely blank canvas because, like Jimbo, last time I watched Wycombe was the time that Pelly was tapping his watch halfway through the game. Do you remember that? I'm pretty sure that was the last time we played them.
We thought we'd left them
behind
a long time ago.
Absolutely, yeah. At least of all, did we fear that they could be a division above us in 4 months' time, which, as we sit here right now, is perfectly possible. So I'm coming from it with a blank canvas. It could be that their chances are an awful lot closer to the goal than what ours were. Certainly last season, our chance conversion was really bad at the start of the Premier League season, wasn't it? I mean, we were talking sort of below 10% of chances that we created that actually went in, and we to the point where we were talking about the pressure being on every single chance because there weren't many coming along. So it might be that their strikers are overperforming their XG because the chances can't be missed, but they're not rated as high on XG because ultimately any chance can still be missed. But it might also be that he coaches up forwards. Obviously, Richard Kone has been a player who's been in the minds of Luton fans for a while because there's all sorts of links going on, and there will be now, of course. I suspect that there's a clause in place that we can't go and poach him in January. That's generally the rule when you take a manager in season, that you can't go back.
Well, he was asked actually whether that would be an option, and he gave the very diplomatic answer. He has not even crossed his mind.
He turned into Sir Alistair Cook, didn't he? He played such a good defensive shot to that. I suspect that is the thing, though. Nathan wasn't allowed to come back and pinch anyone when he left for Stoke, so maybe that's one for the summer. But either way, a geezer who was playing in step 5 of non-league less than 12 months ago, scoring the ratio of goals that he scored, there must have been some coaching input into that. You wouldn't be at that level and then suddenly scoring goals at League One, because you wouldn't have been at that level to start off with. So
it can happen, though.
Yeah, it can do, of course.
Andre Gray is a prime example. I don't know what step Hinckley were in, but
then he jumped up to the conference, didn't he, before he went there. Yeah. So yeah, coaching could be involved. I'm interested that it seems like the forwards coach is going to be a former goalkeeper, Lee Harrison, goalkeeper at Barnet. He was goalkeeper coach at Wycombe. We're keeping Kevin Pilkington as our goalkeeping coach. But he used a phrase that he'll be fine. Harrison will be fine as an attacking coach because as a goalkeeper, he knows where the goalkeeper doesn't want the ball to be put, which does actually make a little bit of sense when you think about it, to be fair. Goalkeeper will know where the hot spots are for him to save it and where he's least likely to save it. So if he points out to the strikers, put it where I'm least likely to save it, chances are it's going to end up in the back of the net more. So I get that completely and understand that.
That always makes me laugh, actually, because as a striker, if you're a professional striker, you should know that. That should be what got you to be a striker that gets paid to play football, I suppose.
Yeah, but you look at it from the other side of the coin, though. I mean, it's like these days in a penalty shootout, they've all got the data, haven't they, of where the penalty's most likely to go, but the striker still puts it there. He does, because that's his comfort zone, isn't it? So if this guy can show Elijah where the goalkeeper's comfort zone isn't, and largely it involves dinking it or putting it down by their feet where they can't get that. Certainly that Forest keeper on Saturday weren't getting down to nothing by his feet. It's like a tree collapsing, that boy. But that would be a good thing. But it's important to reference, I don't know if them numbers in terms of goals to XG can be replicated elsewhere, or if it was just an absolute freak show under Bloomfield. And if it was, full credit to him for delivering on that.
Well, I mean, he sustained it over 2 seasons, so you'd like to think that there's an element of design rather than fluke about it, which is positive. It could be that Richard Kone, and obviously Luton have been linked with him, but so have many other players. He appears to be one of these like freak players in that sense that he's a very tall, physical guy in the centre of a 3 that is mobile anyway, so maybe the chances are coming that way. You've still got to stick them in, of course, but it's positive that the sample size of that particular attacking output isn't just limited to last season, isn't just limited to this season. It seems to be a pattern, which is positive. Again, you've got to try and take what they do, which is in a sustained long upward trajectory, and instill that into some strikers that aren't scoring at the moment and don't often look like they're going to be scoring, because previously the main outlet, the main route to goals is an Alfie Doughty, cross it in and they'll be in the box, and when that has gone, Luton have struggled. So there needs to be some plan A and plan B and plan C there as well.
Yeah, you've mentioned Alfie Doughty there. It's interesting that Wycombe's left-back has the most final third entries of any left-back in League One this season. It's clearly an area that they like. They previously had Joe Jacobson at left-back, who was basically the Bloomfield at left-back, been there forever and a day, quit now, he's on television, talking a good game on TV. But the replacement is equally as regular in the final third. So when Alfie Doughty's back, again, he's got the perfect person to utilise that role in his setup. There really is an awful lot about his setup that we've already got the personnel for. I can't stress that enough. And the other thing I like about them from a statistical point of view, Wycombe are 3rd in open play XG in League One this season. Now, we referenced earlier Birmingham, Wrexham and Huddersfield and the amount of spending they've done. I mean, Birmingham spent 13 million quid, rising to 13 million quid on one striker. Now, for Wycombe to be 3rd in open play XG, and it's not just those 3 that are good in League One either. We came up against Bolton last season in the Cup and they looked a pretty half-decent unit over those 2 games.
Ian Charles was there, wasn't he?
Yeah, we've had Wigan in the Cup as well, who've given us a couple of games. Exeter beat us in the Cup last season as well. So we've come up against some good League One sides. So for his team to be 3rd in open play XG, which we're referencing that because obviously all of our YouTube comments constantly tell us in the last couple of months, or Luton only look like scoring from set plays, which you're absolutely right. That is true. Luton do only look, or most of our chances come from set plays. If we've just appointed a manager who's 3rd in the league below against some powerhouse sides that are 3rd in XG in open play, that suggests that when we've got the ball in open play, we are going to get it forward with it and we are going to create chances. Will we be 3rd in the Championship? Probably not. Rome wasn't built in a day or anything like that. I don't know exactly where we are for XG in open play, but we're definitely in the bottom half this season. We have to be, because the last half a dozen games we've barely created a thing from open play. That's going to improve very quickly based on the statistics at Wycombe.
Yeah, and I think that's why I referenced the formation that he likes to play. That to me is a more modern attacking formation, but also gives you some cover in defence. So it's the 3-2-3-1. I mean, there's a 4-3-3 in there as well. Different formations, variations on that, but all of that I've liked when I've seen other teams do it. And I think back to the Premier League, and maybe even in the summer when we were talking about this season, I think you said that you were really hoping that Luton would transition to a 4-3-3 because that's what everyone in the Premier League was playing. You can match up with them, and we didn't get either of those things. So that encourages me more. More bodies in the middle of the park, because there's been open wide chasms in the centre of that pitch for so long that it barely needs any match preparation from the opposition sides, because you can just cut through them so easy.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we couldn't make it any more obvious if we had neon light pointing down on us where you could attack us. That's why I like this 4 at the back. Forget how the 6 are structured in front of it. You can have 4-2-3-1, but in no time at all it can become a 4-1-4-1. In no time at all it can become a 4-3-3. Then if you're on top and you want to just soak up a little bit of pressure, it can just quickly turn into a 4-5-1, especially with Isaiah Jones on the right. He's naturally good at getting up and down the line. You'd have someone who's equally as used to doing it on the left by the time that this formation works. Within that, just within a back 4, you can fluidly change to about 5 different formations.
I think that's the key, isn't it? The flexibility of it is what they needed, because we weren't seeing flexibility, even though to say that Rob Edwards wasn't capable of it is not true, because he was in the Premier League. It just wasn't happening in this season, and for whatever reason, most people will have their suspicions, but we won't know because we can't hear it from the horse's mouth. But to have that changeability in that side is everything at the moment, because we're not seeing it. And if one idea doesn't work, then there isn't another idea. And I'm also thinking that his enthusiasm about the likes of Isaiah Jones being signed before he even came suggests to me he's going to play Isaiah Jones in a place where Isaiah Jones is going to be useful, and therefore not a wing back.
Yeah, exactly. And if we you referenced it in the last podcast, the coach's voice piece that he did. If you've read that, we put it in the show notes. If you've read it, it really, I mean, it's a long read, but it's a really interesting read from a guy who's, I don't know exactly when he wrote it, but it wasn't written yesterday. One of the things that I like about it is he gets his players to know that if someone leaves their part in the shape, so let's say the left back goes forward, there's someone designated to fill in that position in case the left back loses the ball. Whereas now, or as we were rather, if Alfie Doughty, when he was playing, lost the ball up the pitch, there was 80 yards behind him to go into, and every single team went into it without fail. Now you get the impression that someone will be covering that position, someone who will be able to play that position and, just hold the guy up until whoever it is out of position can get back into position. There'll be a responsibility from the team angle within the individuals that are in the team.
Yeah, that one, yes, I like that, but that one feels to me like that'll take a longer time
that's not,
to implement.
We're not seeing
if
that
we
Saturday.
see it against Preston, brilliant, wonderful, but I think that's a longer partnership and cooperation, understanding, positional sense part of the outlook of what he would probably want to do, which may take a little longer to bed in. But if it does, yes, because think back to Coventry when they just knew where the danger zones were to attack Luton, and they ruthlessly did it. And part of that was some of those reasons you just outlined there. So, yeah, as long as we don't see that sort of stuff again, and with the amount of running that we are expecting that his teams are going to be doing, then yeah, positive stuff.
Yep, that's probably the end game sort of thing. That coach's voice piece. That's where he'll want to be with Luton, and let's hope he gets there as quickly as he can. I suspect he's going to need a transfer window, or probably the summer transfer window, to be able to do all of that. You get the feeling that energy is going to be a key thing of what we're talking about on podcasts under Matt Bloomfield, which we haven't really been talking about in the last 3 or 4 months. That's not to say there's been no effort, but, we just haven't been able to maintain our intensity and our energy for the whole 90 minutes, which is something that we have covered quite a few times.
And that's one of the things that's been a bit baffling, because once they got to grips in the Premier League, they were sharp and they were doing those things, and most of those players were playing in the Premier League. But this season, a lot of them, for many games, not all the games, but large portions of them, and obviously the crucial parts when you're not on top and you're getting punished, it almost seems like they've been running through treacle. It's like, I can't put my finger on why that would be, but that's just the observation that you're seeing. So hopefully, if if the treacle gets removed from the pitch, then brilliant.
Yeah, no doubt about that. So we've got 4 games coming up where we'll get an indication as to what we can expect under Bloomfield. There's still the transfer window in amongst that 4 games as well. As James alluded to earlier, Gary Sweet in the press conference when he unveiled Bloomfield used the term that we were going to try to be as aggressive as possible. I think it was that he said as his actual words in the transfer market, which suggests that they know that they need to do stuff in the squad. Gary referenced that the one thing this squad doesn't have is pace when they were talking about Isaiah Jones, and he's absolutely right. So I wouldn't be at all surprised to see another pacey player come in, which opens the door for me for a Premier League loan, I suspect. Because it might not be easy to do permanent business over the last 2 weeks of the transfer window. It never is in January. But we'll take what we can get. But I still think, from everything that I've heard and read about Matt Bloomfield and the style of football and the formation and the approach that he plays, he's got largely what he needs here. There might be 1 or 2 things that he needs to get out of someone in a certain position to feel what he wants. But I think largely the characteristics, this team generally is a hard-working side. It's an honest side. Naturally, it presses as we speak. We've got flexibility with players in the attacking sense, so he can move that formation about. All he has to do, from what he's speaking about, is that out of possession shape, and that's just going to be just drilling it on the training ground until we get it right. But we've got 4 games, and then we've got that Plymouth game's been moved now, or it will be moved. So then after that, he's got the best part of 2 weeks before we go to Sunderland. I think his game after that. That's when you'd expect to see some real shift, wouldn't you? Because he'll get near enough 10 days. They'll have a few days off, but call it 7 days of hard work on the training ground. And he can really rubber stamp everything then. Whereas over the next week, it's largely going to be recovery, as it always is when we have 3 game weeks.
Yeah. For that stuff, technical stuff, you could probably still do. But he was clear that he didn't want to overload them with too much information, which I think is probably right. Don't overcomplicate it. We know where the problems are, which are at the back. And, well, actually, they're at both ends because they haven't been scoring recently, but they can score, and they have, I don't know, whether it's a confidence thing with them, it usually is with strikers. But the supply lines weren't there as well. The lack of bodies in midfield didn't help. But, in the last 2 games, we've seen, Zach Nelson come to the fore. Tom Krause hasn't even really been used, but he can open up a defence with a pass. And so there's a lot to be positive about. The introduction of Jones, obviously, we'll see in the next day or 2 whether Doughty's back, because he didn't make it for the QPR game, and then even if he was ready, I would just never suggested put him in for the Forest game because Preston's more important. So that would be important if he comes back. But he's been out for such a length of time, he won't be playing probably 90 minutes if he does come back. But there's some, it does feel like a weight's been lifted a little bit, and that's all you can really hope for starters, and then we'll see where we are after a game or 2. But it's going to be a half a season period of transition, really, isn't it? And the summer window is when they'll do the business. But if they can pull away from the bottom 3, as had happened, with in the balmy heights of 15th not too long ago, and
nosebleed territory.
Yeah, exactly. If you can do that and be comfortable, then your ability to change and try new things is greatly relieved because the pressure isn't there, isn't it? So that would be the key to do that. But ultimately, however they do it, survival-wise, I just please don't make it go to our last game of the season against Blackburn, sort of thing, like in the first Championship season back. So it does. It just does. It's that change, doesn't it? What is the phrase? A change is good as a rest, isn't it? It's just that change of voice, change of ideas, fresh impetus, a couple of tweaks here or there, and then see where that takes you. Because the squad so far have underperformed, and I think that Jordan Clark admitted that himself after the Forest game. So I'm not speaking out of turn or anything. And they'll know that, and now hopefully they can start to perform at a level that is more theirs.
Yeah, and that's another reason why I'm confident, because we've heard a few interviews recently how the players have been underperforming, so they know it, but they just can't get out of that rut, and that's what makes me think the new voice is what was needed. Listen, I've nothing against Rob Edwards. I said it in the podcast that we did about him. I'll always remember him as the guy who gave me the greatest day in my Luton supporting life, made all my Luton supporting dreams come true with that Premier League season, and I'll never forget it. But ultimately, we couldn't just ignore the last 2 months. It had gone from the very highest of highs in the getting to the Premier League to not the lowest of lows, because we've been a hell of a lot lower, but to a point where as a football fan you don't want to be, where you're not enjoying going to football matches, where you can't see where the next result's coming from, where you can't even see where the next shot on target's coming from at times, particularly away from home. It just needed that fresh outlook for us. So I'm sure that the players needed it as well. And do you know what? I'm excited. I'm excited for Saturday. I can't wait to see what he does with this side. I'm not expecting him to be absolutely perfect, but by the same token, I'm expecting a level up from what we've seen in recent championship games.
Yeah, and that's the pep in your step you get from this change, doesn't it? What I'm looking forward to is just hopefully the return of fun. I said a while ago, probably 2 or 3 months ago, it started to be not fun.
Yeah.
And it had been fun for so long. And I commented on Twitter today, in fact, because the video of
It was 5 years ago today, wasn't it? Yeah.
Against Bournemouth, the last minute one.
3 years ago today, I'm all over the gaff.
It seems like a very long time ago.
Does,
yeah,
yeah.
It does, yeah. Well, but that was put on Twitter because it was the anniversary of that. And you just remember the absolute madness of that game and how chaotically wonderful it was. And that was the Luton that we all loved, because they just went at teams and were relentless. And that was a Bournemouth team that then got to the Premier League and have stayed there and are very good now. You know, they've been beating some big teams. And that wasn't even the best Luton side, but it was that upward trajectory of where Luton could be. And I just want that back, even if we get a sliver of that for starters. That's the way you want, because I watched it and I must have watched it 10 times over, because it just put a smile on my face. And I don't think people have had a smile on their face for a long time.
If we get a Naismith chop and stick it in a bottom bin in the 95th minute on Saturday, I mean, what a moment it'll be. I mean, we've had a few of those 95th minute winners recently anyway. Everyone, yeah, you're right. I mean, I've referenced it on this podcast. At one point, people were telling me, if it's so cold at such and such a time, I don't know if I can be bothered to go and watch it, and that's where we'd got to. No Luton fan wants to say something like that. Every Luton fan wants to look forward to the Saturday or the Tuesday night or whatever it may be and go and watch their team play and sing songs and get right behind them and everything else. But it's just not felt like that. It's just felt dreary and dismal. And I get the impression from talking to fans and hearing, people messaging me on social media and everything, that the fan base is going to be rejuvenated on Saturday, and that's definitely no bad thing. And if that feeds onto the football pitch, then happy days. And
songs. I'm looking forward to the return of songs.
Yes.
There's just been a lack of noise, a lack of buzz. The songs have all disappeared, mainly because one of the big songs was about Edwards and Lockyer, who hasn't been playing. So that went. That was a great song. I just mourn the loss of songs, because half the time the atmosphere and the things that are happening are better than the football.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's not to say that the football can't be great, but the atmosphere makes it. This is why going to games, if you can, is for me a hell of a lot better than watching it on TV. You will never get the same experience. You'll get replays, you'll get the commentary and stuff, but you'll never get the added extra of being at the game. And that had gone, really. And it so many times you're sitting there and you could hear people having the conversations they were having, because it had gone, and to get that back is a big thing.
Well, that's it. I mean, you know me, Jimbo. I go to every game. I don't miss games, and I won't miss games. But the last few away games, and people have been messaging me that what TV's saying, and they're watching it on TV with a beer in their hand and their feet up in the sofa in front of a warm fire and all this, that and the other. And I'm like, making me a bit jealous here. Do you know what I mean? I'm sat here bored, stiff and frozen, and everyone else is warm. And at least if you're watching it on television, you could switch it over, couldn't you? You couldn't go and watch another game of football. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to the Bloomfield era. Welcome him, and look forward to seeing what he can do. A 3.5-year contract, so they were obviously backing him for a while. He's basically effectively just taken on Rob's contract, hasn't he? Because he had 3.5 years left on his. And I mean, all things being equal, this is the guy that takes us into Power Court.
We thought that with Nathan. He got a long contract, and then he decided he wanted to go to Southampton. Then we thought that with Rob when he got his 4-year contract in the summer, and that didn't work. So, yeah, hopefully, if he is there, then things have gone very right, aren't they? And that's what everybody wants from this situation.
Yep. So we're pretty comfortable with Matt Bloomfield as manager, even though he wasn't the name that we threw out when we did previous podcasts. You know, that's fine. We could be wrong, and we're still happy with the appointment.
I mean, he was top of the bookies list when we did the last one, and my scepticism was just that the bookies haven't got it right in the last couple of appointments. But maybe Luton are a bigger deal now because they've been in the Premier League, that you've got more eyes on it. But you can't not look at the main attributes that he's instilled into two different teams and where he's got them, and think that it's not a progressive appointment. It's just that when you've not managed in the Championship, but everybody's got to start somewhere. And Nathan hadn't, Rob hadn't. It fits the profile really that they're after, really. And some of the names on that list that we discussed were never ever in the running, and that's just the way it is. Took
the last Watford manager, took Wycombe manager. What price the Stevenage manager is to follow Matt Bloomfield? We do seem to be going a tour of 3 counties.
Well, that's obviously the two main criteria for a Luton manager is to A, have a great quiff, and B, be from a team that's from Hearts, Beds and Bucks, so your new mates at BBC 3 Counties can interview him with some previous.
Might get invited down for another phone in. You never know, Jimbo.
He's going to do a Nathan, isn't he? Halfway through the season.
Not at all. I am committed to this podcast. Done 8 years. If I'm not committed now, if that doesn't show me how loyal I am, as someone said to Matt Bloomfield when he said, I've done 20 years at Wycombe, I think that shows my loyalty. I've done 8 years here. And there's plenty more to come, unfortunately, for you guys. Yeah, players have to come from Barnsley, managers have to come from the 3 counties, and that's the way it is and the way it'll always be. Preston North End first up on Saturday. I guess in many ways, if I said to you, if we can have a repeat of the performance at their place, 3rd game of the season, we'll be fine with that, because so many chances were created. It's still the most shots that we've had in an away game this season. So many chances were created, and as I alluded to earlier in the podcast, many of them were missed because we didn't score a goal. But if we play that way and create that many chances again on Saturday, you would think the law of averages is going to kick in and we're going to score some goals. So that's kind of what we're looking for against a Preston side who they've only won 1 away all season. You know, they're ripe for being picked off. They don't really impress on any of the team statistics. Sort of certainly not attacking ones. They've got a couple of individuals that do. In fact, the only ones that they come up on top on are fouls and yellow cards, and they're well clear in yellow cards. So Tim Robinson's going to have a busy afternoon, I suspect, and fouls. So just don't foul the right people, lads. You know, just a few people that we need for the rest of the season. But it does have the feel of a home game that whoever was in charge, Luton should be looking at winning. No disrespect to Preston, but I would expect if a team's only won once away all season, which is exactly the same as what Luton have won away all season, and we all know Luton's problems away from home, I would expect Luton as a home team to beat them.
Well, on the face of it, yeah. I mean, they're 5 points better off than Luton at the moment, and when we played them last time, you wouldn't have thought that, but even though they got the win because of the amount of chances that created. I guess that's almost symptomatic of Luton's season since, in a sense. Conceding at the wrong time and then not being able to capitalise on the pressure that you've got. But Preston are currently where Preston usually are, if not a little bit higher, but certainly
in the league table. You mean they've not moved geographically?
Yeah. So mid-table ish, or usually comfortable in the Championship, but rarely pulling up trees. And it's definitely has the making, if they've only won one away, for this to be like, to prove the point that this might have been the right time. It was the last right time to change the manager. I think there's a case to say it could have happened sooner, but given the gap between league games, certainly because of the FA game in the middle, FA Cup game in the middle, and the team that you're going to play next, if you're going to get a new manager to bounce against anyone, surely it's a team that aren't faring too well away from home. And hopefully Kenilworth Road does kick up an extra couple of notches because of that change. It does point to something really exciting. That's the main thing. We're going to go there on Saturday with a spring in my step, where it hadn't been before.
Yeah, I would imagine. I mean, what time do turnstiles open? 1:30, 2 o'clock, whatever it is. There'll be a buzz around Kenilworth Road again. You know, before a big game or a key game, before the music plays, and then there's just that natural buzz, isn't there? And I would imagine that will be back on Saturday. I hope it is. If you've got a ticket for Saturday, please, and if you haven't got a ticket yet, I believe that tickets are still on sale. Let's pack out the Kenny. Let's get right behind Matt Bloomfield. I would imagine he's going to be unveiled at about 5-3 or whatever, like they usually do with new managers on the pitch. Be in place. Let's get right behind him. Let him know that we're right behind him. Get right behind the players. Make it as noisy and as hostile as Kenilworth Road can be, albeit on a Saturday afternoon. Obviously, the atmosphere better under lights, but you know, it is what it is. And just make it difficult for Preston, because, as we've referenced, they're not great away from home. First goal here could be massive, because if they get it, our losing mentality might make it a struggle for us. If we get it, chances are they're going to be like, oh, not another away game where we've gone behind. And with our backing, with the tweaks that we're expecting from a going forward perspective, and looking a lot better out, or looking a bit more solid out of shape, could turn into a nice afternoon.
Yeah, it has that feel about it. The mentality of it is going to be massive, that first goal, because of the way the two teams have performed away for Preston, but just generally for Luton. It will be big. But I think that even any fan that maybe have some reservations about Matt Bloomfield, primarily I'm reading it's just, it's largely because he's not managed in the Championship, which is fair, because you see the bookies list and you see Steve Cooper and, not to a lesser degree, Sean Dyche, and some really bonkers people are even saying Neil Warnock, who wasn't on that list, but some still said it. They wanted that man that's more established in that division, and maybe even with some experience of Premier League. That's a legitimate reservation if you have it, but I think that they're leaving themselves open to be impressed, which is a key thing. If you're just completely against it without a ball being kicked or anything, then I think that's an odd stance, and I haven't detected any of that. And so that optimism, even if it's a guarded optimism, is going to be it's going to be a change anyway, isn't it?
Yeah, indeed. Listen, if we'd appointed him when we're 14th in the table, 15 points above the relegation zone, I would imagine universally everyone would see this as a good appointment. It's just how close we are to the relegation zone, and the fact that he'll be managing his first Championship game. Will it be the first time he's seen Championship football? No, he's played for Wycombe in the Championship. I would imagine he'll have scouted opposition teams in the Championship loads of times. I referenced he had a West Brom youngster on loan at Wycombe. He must have watched some sort of West Brom football to know his scouts will be scouting in the Championship for players.
And he's done it twice this season already. He's taken the scouts of Swansea and Portsmouth.
Beating Portsmouth at home could be handy in a month or so's time, couldn't it?
That. But he's done that both. Now Portsmouth maybe isn't perhaps as difficult for a team flying, because they're in a similar scenario to Luton. But Swansea, as we've seen twice in very short order in the last month, to beat them in cup competition, regardless of whether they chopped and changed their side for that competition, is decent scout. They are a decent Championship side that can keep the ball and not let you have it. So that's those two games and he's highlighted them as well in his pre-match press unveiling, that he's done that, and that can stand him in good stead for a life in the Championship.
Yep, I still maintain there's not a great deal of difference between the top of League One and the Championship. I think the gap's closed since we came up from the from League One into the Championship, and even then you got to reference that we lost the two most important players of our formation where we made that move up, and we still stayed up. So,
well, and changed the manager as well.
Changed the manager.
Who
I really
also hadn't managed the football team before.
Yeah, exactly. And if you look to last season, Ipswich came up from League One and went straight into the Premier League, admittedly with a fair bit of financial oomph, but it just goes to show the gap isn't. People know the gap's big between the Premier League and the Championship. Nowhere near as big between the Championship and League One. Generally, teams that go down will go straight back up. And more often than not, teams that come up from League One stay up. You know, look at Oxford. They were going absolutely fine, weren't they, until they hit a few injuries. They're going to stay up. Portsmouth have had a few problems with their striker who's had the heart problems. He's back now. They've started to pick up some form. And I can't even remember who the other promoted team is. That's how obvious that Derby, they're absolutely mid-table, aren't they? So it's not... It's not too big a jump. We're expecting a back four on Saturday, which is good. Are you expecting much in the way of change from? Well, probably from Forest, really, because we only made one change, which was Jones for Chong. Well, Jones will play. I think someone mentioned that Chong was injured. You'll find out on Friday when you go to the
hamstring, wasn't it? And
hamstring.
We've not been very fortunate with hamstrings in the last year. So
we haven't. But are you expecting many changes to that Forest side on this coming Saturday?
It does depend on who's available, doesn't it? Which we'll find out. If I could pick, from all the players available, if they were fit, then I'd like to see that a double pivot with Marv and Lamine, Krause a bit further forward, Isaiah Jones still in the team, Zach Nelson getting a run. I mean, he might be concussed, we'll see, because he took a hefty whack against Forest. And then, at the moment, if you're going to play 4-2-3-1, you'd have Carlton Morris up at the top for now, until hopefully he can instill some confidence into Elijah.
So you're dumping Walsh? This is
that's a tough one, isn't it? Because
these are the decisions he's got, though, aren't they?
But that's a good thing, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean,
based on the two performances that he's had against QPR and Forest, when he's led the way, other than the defenders, which they're passing sideways between themselves, passes into the final third and touches and everything from an attacking sense. Liam Walsh did well, lost the ball a couple of times, granted, but. If you're going to be brave with the ball in tight areas in midfield,
you're going to lose
that
it.
Can happen. I suppose it depends where you lose it, which is the key. So, I think I would put Walsh in there. Actually, I'd swap out Walsh for Fanny.
Well, he might be injured himself. He went off on.
Could very well be injured. Yeah.
Yeah, he went off on Saturday and didn't look particularly great when he went off. That would be a shame. But yeah, and also, as we said earlier in the podcast, whoever starts on Saturday don't necessarily start on Tuesday, because there's going to be a lot of rotation under Matt Bloomfield. I'm pretty comfortable with that. Everything. I mean, if he's going to make changes at Wycombe, then with a bigger squad at Luton, you would think it's ripe to make.
That's
changes.
Kind of how it should be, though, isn't it?
I think so.
If you're singing the praises of a squad, it makes no sense to have 4 or 5 of them who rarely play.
And every challenge is different, isn't it? You just can't play the same at home as what you can away, or at least you can't expect to win away if you do play the same. And hey presto, we have played the same away and we haven't won anything away. So I would expect a more pragmatic approach away from home. I suspect this out of possession stuff that he's talking about, out of possession shape and everything, is more in tune to sorting out the away form rather than the home form, because there's been a great deal wrong with home form. Yes, we'd love more performances at home. And his first away game's against Oxford. If he's not motivated to win that game, I mean, that's his Watford, isn't it, for the last 20 years? So let's hope he does that. It will be interesting the 11, and it will be interesting to see how that midfield shapes up, and it will be interesting to see just how many wide players and where those wide players are. Are they right up in a 4-3-3, or are they slightly reserved in a 4-2-3-1? Is there a 10 in front of two pivots, or is there one pivot with two in front of them? Generally, he has played two with one in front, but the one in front has got some really good attacking numbers at Wycombe, so it might just be that he's got a special player there, which he might not have necessarily here. We've got an awful lot of players that can take the ball off of the edge of the defenders, but maybe not so many that can do the creative bit at the top end of that sort of triangle of midfielders. So it'll be interesting to see how it works out and everything. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I am looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting tactically, isn't it, to assess how that works.
And
it won't be perfect. That's the thing. So don't think it will be perfect, but we just want improvement.
Well, that is the thing, isn't it? Because there will be comparisons with how Rob did it. And thankfully, we've got a 4-2-3-1 under Rob to compare it to. Because if we were comparing it to that back three, you're comparing apples and oranges, aren't you? But we've got a couple of sort of... We built at Forest from where we were at QPR. Now under a new voice, if we were in the identical formation, you'd expect us to build again just naturally. But if there are some kind of nuances and one or two changes, we'll pick them out when we do the review if we see them. I'm sure if we don't see them, they'll get pointed out by Matt in his post-match anyway. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to discussing that. So, yeah, that's good. Pretty much it for this episode of the podcast. It's a long episode, this one. We've combined the two just because we haven't got enough time to get two separate ones out to you. But there's still well over 48 hours until kickoff, so hopefully you get a chance to watch this and divulge it all as normal. But we won't leave before we do score predictions. Me to go first. I've got the odd games. You've got the even games. I'm 7 points behind, so this boy better start winning some away games, otherwise I am in serious trouble, but we haven't got to worry about that yet. Luton win this game. I would have expected Luton to win this game, whoever the manager was, whether it was Rob, whether it was Mick. Now that it's Matt, I expect Luton to win this game. Do we keep a clean sheet, Jimbo? Do we go from a sieve-like defence to a brick wall-like defence in 4 days? We probably don't, do we? So we'll go 3-1 Luton.
Wow.
It's happening, mate.
That's a big score.
It's happening.
Fair play to you. That's a big score. I was teetering on the edge of a fantastical 1-0, but I think it is baby steps. I think it's probably a bit too much to expect the defence are going to affect a complete shutout from the off, as much as I'd love that. But I do think Luton win, carried by a wave of emotion and more positive feeling than we've seen for a long while. And I think that will feed from the terraces to the players and give them a lift. I expect that they'll be given a lift anyway from the last 3.5-4 days with the new man, the new ideas, fresh voice. So I will go for one less and 2-1.
2-1 Luton for Jimbo, 3-1 Luton for me. Hey, let's start big. 3-1. That's not even that big, really, is it? I mean,
but it is for this.
It is,
currently what we've seen. That is big.
I'm asking Luton to score 3 goals for the first time since the derby. Start as you mean to go on, Matt. That's what I say. Start as you mean to go on.
Well, seeing as our new intro title sequence has got some happy memories from that Watford game in there.
Show that before the game.
Exactly. Just play that.
Stick that on the wall before the game, Matt, and go from there. Yeah. If you've got a ticket for Saturday, listen, we've all got our concerns about the position in the league table, and that's absolutely right. If we don't reference that we're in a relegation battle, we don't think we're in a relegation battle, and we are. Until we're out of it, we're in a relegation battle. But for the 90 minutes that take place on Saturday, let's get right behind this new start, a fresh start, and carry the boys forward on the pitch. Listen, we're only 3 or 4 results away from getting out of this, and if we can get one of those on Saturday, bigger and better things can come from it, particularly if those around us happen to lose as well. We're going to bring Preston right back into the mix if we win on Saturday as well. We've referenced a few times in recent times when we've played teams in and around us, QPR being one, that it's important not to let them get away as much as it's important to stay close to them. We have a chance to do that, and then we'll have another chance to do that on Tuesday night against Oxford, who are starting to wriggle away from us a little bit as well. So big few days, and hopefully we start it on the front foot. So yeah, if you haven't got a ticket yet, but you can go to the game, check the website. But I'm pretty sure as we record right now, tickets are still available. Let's get Kenilworth Road packed to the rafters. Let's get it rocking, and let's ensure Kenilworth Road is every bit like Matt said he hated when he was a Wycombe player, because they soon got our backs up, that Wycombe team, didn't they? So if we can get that sort of atmosphere on Saturday, he'll appreciate it. The players will appreciate it. Preston won't like it, and the town can get 3 points courtesy of a 3-1 win, lads. 3-1. That would do.
2-1. 2-1.
It's that bad. I'll even take 2-1, even if it gets you 2 more points away from me. Thanks very much for watching or listening, however it is that you've consumed this lengthier podcast. We will try and keep them shorter over the next week as they come thick and fast at you. But obviously,
there's just so much to talk about.
That's the thing, isn't it? We're in a busy stage of play at Luton with a transfer window open, a new manager, a brighter outlook, and a game of football on the horizon as well. But they will be a lot shorter and a lot swifter to come. Get your score predictions in. We're back with score predictions this time around, having not had it for the Forest game. And we will be back to review and give shout outs to anyone who's got it right in the usual time next week. Please do keep subscribing. We are beyond 2,000 subscribers now, which we're really, really grateful for. It's a 3-game week though. Podcasts are going to come thick and fast at you over the next week or so. So if you don't want to miss any of the content, then subscribe and you will be notified exactly when each podcast comes along. Thanks also to the Barber Club and the Lower Level in Luton for hosting our studio. We appreciate your support as always, guys, as we do to Sean Grant and the Wolfgang for our intro music, and to Ed Smith Creative for the designs that you see on set. Until next time, which will be a review of what we hope will be a Luton Town 3-1 win from Jimbo and myself. Come on, you Hatters, let's do this.
I believe our supporters are the best supporters in the country.
I love this town. I love this town. I love this town. You know what I love about this town is actually you. Everyone in it has got this massive soul.
We're Luton people.